Been waiting a long time for this guy. Welcome, He-Man fans. And it's another Masters of the Universe Origins review. It's for Scareglow. And I don't have a vintage Scareglow. He's the most expensive vintage He-Man figure. Goes for quite a bit. Last time I saw him in person, locally, the seller was asking for over $300 Canadian complete, and it wasn't even in very good condition. So I think that's pretty much what you're looking at for a vintage, loose, used, well-loved Scareglow, and mint on card even more. So if you want a vintage looking, not a vintage, but vintage looking mint on card Scareglow figure, then you can get one right now on Big Bad Toy Store for $15.99. I cannot believe this is $16 US. Never saw him on the shelves here on the pegs. We've been on lockdown here in Ontario for quite some time, but I think this is one that the carts will be filled whenever this guy shows up, and there's going to be scalpers buying all of them. So this is not a vintage He-Man figure, but a commemorative one that Mattel put out quite some years back. They never reissued Scareglow on the commemorative series, so that wasn't a more affordable option. And then not too long ago, Super 7 did a run of these figures, the animated style looking figures, and also Scareglow never made it to this short run of Super 7 figures that are no longer being produced. So this is it. This is the only game in town if you want to own a vintage looking Scareglow without paying hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And when I first heard about the Origins line, this is the first guy. This guy in Ninjor first came to my mind. I went, I've got to get two of each. One to keep mint on card and hang up on the wall next to all the other, I don't have any vintage carded He-Man figures, but I've got the commemorative ones and I've got the Super 7 ones. And so if the originals never got reissued or released as the Super 7 animated ones, then I was going to get duplicates of these. And thanks to good brother Eric in the Isle of Man, I do have a duplicate of these. He was able to track down, go figure, this guy shows up in the Isle of Man, but nowhere in my part of Ontario. And he was kind enough to send this along. So Eric, thank you again so much for sending that along. And then the question is, which one do I open? I'm noticing just comparing the two. This one is from Big Bad Toy Store. This one is from the Isle of Man. And this one is missing the evil ghost of Skeletor underneath. It's missing the glow-in-the-dark little thing here. This one's in 3 languages, trilingual. The back, let's take a look and compare the two. Looks like it's the same artwork on the back, just trilingual text here. Well, that's kind of interesting. Even though this is the trilingual card, it just says He-Man. It's missing the descriptions underneath here as well, just as it does on the front of the card. So the one that I'm going to open is actually going to be the one from Big Bad Toy Store, because this one is quite special to me. It's from a good friend, and this one will hang on the wall because it's not just the figure that came from a friend in the Isle of Man halfway across the world, but the card as well. So I'm going to hang those up on display while I open up this one. But before I release him from his packaging, I do want to show off what he looks like glowing in the packaging, because I've done that in the past. I think it was King Grayskull. The way he looks glowing in his package looks really cool. So I'm going to shut off the lights in behind here and turn off these side lights. And let's see how much he glows. Oh, wow. I'm having a lot of luck lately with glow-in-the-dark figures. A lot of them they are bright to my eye in person here, but the camera usually does not capture just how bright they are. But the last couple of glow-in-the-dark items I've shown on camera here have really, really glowed nice and bright. So you can't even really tell that he's in a package there. So if he's hanging up on your wall, it'll just look like a ghost floating there as it's as it's supposed to. I'm just floating it around here. And if you only have one and you want to play around with them, then I guess you can. You can just grab the top of the card and make some ghost noises. It's time for this ghost to escape his trap. And he's got his staff. Like I said, I don't have the original one, but I do have the Classics version. And I'll be comparing in a few minutes the Origins version with the Classics version. And I'm assuming that this Origins version is pretty bang on with the original one. I'll use some pictures to compare as well. There's also a comic book in here. How's that for a time warp? Whenever you pull a comic book out of the back of packaging that looks exactly like the original packaging. Comic is titled Double Trouble. Got some pictures of other figures available on the back there. That's so cool. Actual printed paper little mini comic. Appreciate that these are being done, because I can see years down the road maybe there will be a code instead, that you go to a certain website, maybe a URL or something, and you can go and read a secret URL mini comic. But it's pretty wild to still get an actual mini comic. This is interesting binding here. These little details that you can pick up on. Always cool to see some characters that don't normally get a lot of exposure, either in, like, Scareglow never appeared in the original Filmation show. I do believe he's in the comic strip, the newspaper strip comics. I know Ninjor has a great arc in one of those, but there's a Scareglow in here as well. And here's the actual figure. And here he is, out of the package. First thing I notice is a hard plastic cape, but this is some really interesting material here. It feels like cloth. This pattern that's in here, this texture, even though this is plastic, kind of rubbery plastic, to the touch, it really does feel like cloth on both sides. That's pretty wild. I don't know if I've ever seen a plastic cape that feels like this. I would love to see more of capes like this, actually, especially if they're going to do an update version. Like this guy, the original version does have a cloth cape, and they've tried to recreate some of the folds in the vintage cape. They've done it quite well, actually. The nice thing about going to a plastic cape is that this will never lose its shape. It'll never flatten, it'll never fray, it'll never tear, or shouldn't. One potential problem area I see, this is only connected by this little thin piece of plastic. I see that snapping, especially if this comes under a lot of play wear. Maybe if a kid is like throwing him around and using this to hold him by, that's probably not going to be strong enough to hold that for very long. But as a display piece, I don't really think that's going to be an issue in the long run. The plastic is awesome. It's see-through, glow in the dark. That was one of the things I was skeptical about. I didn't think we were going to get this Scareglow that they actually produced. I thought it was going to be... actually, this guy, I think, is glow in the dark through and through as well. He's not just painted. He's not quite as translucent, though, as this guy. It seems like light passes through him a little bit better than this one. A little more solid looking. This guy glows like crazy as well, though. But I was assuming, and I think some of the early pictures even looked like he was going to be just painted with glow-in-the-dark paint. So that is always a huge bonus whenever you get a picture of something and then the actual production version is something that they've actually gone the extra mile with doing. He comes with this staff right here, really long staff. And I believe the vintage one, correct me if I'm wrong, but the vintage one, there were two versions, bright green just like this, as well as a glow-in-the-dark one. This particular one, I doubt it actually glows in the dark. Let's put it to the test here. This is how I've always tested my entire life. If something glows in the dark, especially like in a store, if it's something that I can actually, like a keychain or something, that does not glow. And just to show you that that technique does actually work, you can see maybe if I charge them up for just a minute on my light box here, it should pop a little bit better. You can see some glowing in there. To my eye, it glows a lot better. It's just because the camera, it can't pick it up because there's so much other stuff around here. The hands are perfect material for holding weapons, nice and sturdy. It's not popping out. Sometimes on action figures the accessory wants to pop out, but this is in there great. I always forget these Origin figures have these wrist joints just because they look so vintage to me. I just assume that the arms should only go up and down like the original ones, and I forget that there's this wrist tilt as well. And I also always forget that, oh boy, the joints do come out. Oh, I thought I had stretched that, but it's actually two different types of plastic, or two different colors of plastic. So more translucent and more solid looking. Again, I'm curious if these joint pieces glow. And we'll put that to the test actually right now by killing all the lights. Not really. Wow, man, does that hand ever glow? It doesn't look like it. I wonder if the only reason that looks like it's actually glowing is because it's translucent and the light from the actual glowing piece is traveling through the translucent piece. But it does not appear to me as though these little joint pieces do actually glow. But that doesn't seem to be an issue if the light is going to travel that well through that translucent plastic. So smart call using somewhat translucent plastic on there. Take a look at some other details on this guy. It's so cool to finally be holding a vintage Scareglow. I know it's a Origins Scareglow, but in my mind it's a vintage Scareglow. And he's mint, and I've said this before, he's better. He's better than a vintage one because he can actually do stuff like that. So, I don't know. I might be in the vast minority, but if I had my choice to display a vintage Scareglow versus this guy with my vintage Masters of the Universe collection in the back there, I don't know, it's a tough call. It might be a coin flip which one I would actually want back there with all the other ones, because there's so many cool things you can do. Whoops, like pop off an arm. And with this particular ghost, that could even be an attack actually. If you've got some kids who are playing with, a ghost is more likely to be able to fire off an arm as a projectile, or roboto as well. You can do stuff like this. You can have him grip his staff and hold it above his head like this. One issue I will also bring up, another issue, is this plastic feels a little more gummy than some of the other plastic used on some of the other figures, just because of the glow-in-the-dark gimmick, the nature of the plastic. And that's always been the case. The glow-in-the-dark Robocop that I have from the Ultra Police line is also gummy. So that's an issue that you might encounter. This elbow doesn't seem to want to bend. And I'm having some flashbacks to one of my modern Cobra Commander figures that had a stuck elbow and it just would not bend. This, feels like it's going to break if I try to force it. Although these, that joint does not come off actually. I don't believe that you can pull out, can you? I tried pulling on it pretty hard, and the actual forearm will not come out. So I got stuck elbows on mine. I am putting as much force as I feel is safe on there, and they're not moving. Neither of them are. That's interesting. it looks like it should move a little bit more than that. They don't move at all. Just a little bit of a wiggle. And I'll do a couple of comparisons with the Classics version, who came with this key to grayskull. Pretty much the same amount of detailing on the Classic staff. The biggest difference is they've added the glow-in-the-dark blade part to the front, and also the little spikes on the back as well. And another big difference is the Classics cape kind of has this translucence to it near the bottom of it, while the Origins cape is solid all the way through. But the big thing with this guy is his glow-in-the-dark feature. Oh, one more thing I wanted to show off, the head detail. Both of them have that little crack in the head. Same type of detailing on the waist with the ribs and the stripes down the arms. But the most important part about this figure is his glow-in-the-dark feature. So let's take a look. We already had a little sneak preview of how he glows earlier when he was in his package, but let's kill the lights. Wow. So nothing on the weapon glows. Nothing of it. It's not made of glow-in-the-dark plastic and painted. It's just regular material. Nothing on the cape glows either. And this is actually a really good example of just how much light passes through this material right here, because no light has touched his back right here, but his body is made of the same type of translucent plastic, and it is just still lighting that up a bit. But man, is that ever lit up. And by comparison, here's the Classics version, and he's just not glowing all that well. Now, to my eye, he is a little brighter than what you're seeing on camera, but it's pretty much true to what I'm seeing with my eye here. This guy is really, really glowing still. I mean, it's been, what, a full minute since I had him charged up with the lights. While this guy is really quickly, the Classics one, it's dark. Sorry, I should specify. The Classics one is starting to really get dark. It doesn't take all that long to charge them back up. So we'll turn the lights back on, have them soak up some rays just for a couple of seconds, and you get to see this all in real time. And when I kill the lights again, this guy will be a lot brighter again. This guy will be pretty much the same as he was. So yeah, I'll just leave this on this shot for, like a half a minute here, a minute. So you can actually watch in real time as this guy is quickly fading. His shine disappears quite quickly, while the Origins is just wow. Especially his head. It's just so bright. Such an awesome figure. One of the coolest glow-in-the-dark figures ever made. I did a list a while back of my favorite glow-in-the-dark figures. If this guy had existed at the time of doing that video, he would easily be on that list. And I don't know how the glow compares to the vintage Scareglow figure. That would be an interesting comparison for anyone who has the Origins and the vintage one as well. But this guy is definitely on my list of top glow-in-the-dark figures ever made. He's cool, he's bright, he's kind of spooky, kind of like that King of the Dead figure that Lord of the Rings put out a while back. He feels vintage while having some of the perks of being a more modern figure. He's got all the articulation of an Origins figure, save for his elbows. Hit me up in the comments there. Let me know if yours has the same problem. But that's not a thing that I get too worked up about, because rather than, going boohoo, why isn't that working? It should be working. I rather go, good Lord, his ankles work, and they never did on the old ones. And he's got a calf twist, and he's got a knee. The knees actually bend. Wow. Okay, so he's actually got a knee bend. His knees work, and that was his elbows. For some reason, his elbows do not. Everything else seems to work perfectly fine with it, though. Huge win of a figure. Awesome job, Mattel. Thank you so much for putting this guy out and putting him out as quickly as you did. It's really awesome that we didn't have to wait years and years and years, because Scareglow was one of the final Mattel figures of the original Masters of the Universe run way back when. So it's a huge bonus to be able to get Ninjor and Scareglow, two of the more rare Masters of the Universe figures that quickly on in the line. And thanks to Big Bad Toy Store for restocking it so quickly, because when I did check it out, I got the heads up, hey, the pre-orders are up on Big Bad Toy Store. He was already sold out by the time I had gone on there, and that's just c'est la vie. After it was sold out, it came back in stock, and that's just a bonus. Like, cool, awesome. I thought I had missed out, and I didn't, and more people got a chance to own him. So he is on there right now, but if you are watching this video maybe a couple weeks down the road and it's sold out again, don't sweat it. Just check again in a couple of weeks. You never know. I've seen that so often on Big Bad Toy Store where something is sold out. Maybe they should even put a little disclaimer underneath, sold out for now. Like, just to reassure people that, don't worry, maybe something will turn up down the road. But if you've ever wanted a vintage Scareglow, this is the way to go, man. This is awesome. It looks, it feels just like the original one. My desire to ever own a vintage Scareglow is gone. It's kaput. It's it's just awesome to have this final missing piece of the puzzle. One of the final missing pieces. Ninjor is another big one, which I'll be taking a look at soon. And he's fun to play around with some of your other toy lines. He seems to go perfectly with the Kenner Vintage Ghostbusters too. So if you want to put him with the real Ghostbusters, have him blasting something. There aren't that many like really big, powerful looking ghosts that are kind of serious looking. They've got like a toilet monster, and Stay Puft isn't exactly intimidating looking, but even just kind of throwing this together like this, having the Fab Four blasting this guy, looks really cool. Thanks to the Patreon tribe, as always, for your support. Also, thanks to the channel members for hitting the join button. Welcome to our newest channel member, Mark Wookie. And thank you for watching this video and spending some time with me today. Time is very precious, and you could be using that to spend time with your son or your daughter if you have one, or maybe your mom or dad who might not have a lot of time left. So I really do appreciate you spending some of your time here today, and hope this was fun for you. And feel free to join the discussion in the comment section there. Leave a comment about Scareglow or any of your other favorite toy ghosts for that matter. Till next time, hope you're staying happy and healthy and not too spooky.